all of America is like, what the fuck is going on right now? We need to get rid of this administration. We need to have a total reset and fucking figure out this corruption. And it is glorious, my friend. Glorious.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think this is going to be short-lived.
I hope it's not short-lived, man. If I have to fucking get down on my praying ass knees every fucking day for the next 5 years, I'm gonna do it.
I mean, pick your deity wisely here, because I mean, you only got it's very tough. You're going up against true evil.
I hear you. I definitely feel there's an axis of evil going on right now. So
there is. I mean, it struck out once. I mean, it's gonna come back.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way that it doesn't. It's failed twice now. Okay, it tried to get him 3 times. Tried to get him out with the jail. Tried to imprison him. Right. Then it tried just to have run his name into the ground, do everything it could to get people to just stop paying attention to him. That failed. Now it's gone kinetic. And these are 3-letter agencies. And now you have Trump saying, hey, RFK, according to the thing that you just watched, come join my thing, join my cabinet, and I will let you take on the 3-letter agencies that make up our intelligence network, and root out corruption.
Yeah, literally, I have it paused right now. Donald Trump's rally in Arizona, where RFK just suspended his campaign. And he's taken himself off the battleground states. There's 10 battleground states he's taken himself off the ballot on. And in return, Donald Trump is including him in his administration as the oversight for all the presidential assassinations previously, his included, and he wants him to be in charge of the food and drug administration, basically. He wants him to go through and figure out what's wrong, why we have so much autism and autoimmune diseases in our country, why we're one of the sickest countries in the world. And, RFK's been an advocate for that for 20 years. Like, it's one of his biggest talking points, right? Besides an anti-war stance. So there's 3 or 4 things that they're joining hands on, and it's quite beautiful. It is quite beautiful.
So as long as he can tackle, so it's the FDA, the USDA, the NIH, and the HHS. As long as he can go through and basically, to be totally honest, he's gonna have you have to start with lobbying. That has to be illegal. You have to make lobbying illegal.
All money in politics has to be illegal. And I think that everybody who has a political office needs to have a yearly audit over their finances. A total transparent fucking here's a new department. Guess what? The IRS does not do the people anymore. It does politicians.
Yes. They just hired 80,000 people to go tax.
Turn those 80,000 people directly on the government.
It will take that many.
Every last bit of the government needs to be audited.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine that? I would.
So, but that's what it's going to take, though. So when we say that RFK is going to go do all this work, that's great. But as long as conflicting interests are able to influence those 4 agencies and their policies, then I mean, all he could do is just sword rattle his thing.
I mean, here's the thing, right? President Trump doesn't have any love of government structure. How many people did he fire for being ineffective in his first amendment? I mean, we made fun of him for 2 years because he was just, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. You haven't done anything in 6 months, you're fired.
Right.
Every time we turned around, there's a new Secretary of State or somebody coming through Congress to get requalified. So he has no love of government structure. So it's going to be awesome to see him put into place Musk and RFK Jr. and whoever else he puts in there to just totally obliterate all of this corruption that we've been seeing the last 8 or 9 years.
But you're talking about, the largest organizations on the planet, right?
Absolutely.
So the DoD is the largest single human organization on the planet.
Absolutely. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If you put competent leadership who hires the right people that truly care about America and their ideals and they want to see the best for this country, and they start hiring more people, okay, after 4 years, there's not going to be a rock to hide under on these organizations.
It is. I do not share your optimism.
I believe
Simply
in it, man.
because
I believe it.
It takes one mid-level, director that wasn't uncovered, that has secret ties with some organization in the FDA, for example. Let's just say the FDA has some sort of ties back to, right, I don't know, doesn't even matter, some corn producer, right? They weren't identified as a problem. They're still in there. Their entire chain of command was completely obliterated. The people that they work for, though, were safe, and yet it's a cancer cell. That cancer cell will grow and grow.
Totally get you. I get you, and I know what your skepticism stems from. It's watching the same corruption just eat away at our country for decades now. Decades that we've been watching this happen.
Yep.
It's a drastically different country than it was in 2004. Yeah. I don't recognize America for the better part of America and the American government. I still talk to people and it's the same old, but the government is so crazy.
Yeah.
But I truly think that because I saw amazing things getting done under the Trump administration the first 4 years. And, we can go down that rabbit hole on another podcast tonight. It's kind of about RFK and their merger, their campaigns, more or less,
Right.
And even in RFK's speech tonight, when he was suspending his campaign, he was sitting there talking about how Kamala Harris wouldn't even give him the time of the day. She didn't have time for any of the things that truly meant something to this lifelong Democrat. And it's pretty chilling to see and hear the things that he was talking about that don't matter anymore. And that's the classic ideals that I thought of when I heard, Democratic Party,
Right.
So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next 6 months if Donald Trump doesn't catch a bullet, which I really, I'm hoping and praying that doesn't happen. And then it's going to be an interesting 4 years to watch what happens to our government.
Yeah, let's just talk about that for a brief second. Trying to remember this guy's name. It's not coming to me though. His last name is Files. I can't remember his first name. So anyway, this guy was so long story short, FBI reached out to a investigative journalist who was trying to figure out the Kennedy assassination, right? And this the FBI, it was like a guy that was retiring or just retired, reached out to this investigative journalist and says, "Hey, you need to go talk to this guy named Files. He's in prison and he might have something for you to say." And so he started talking to him, and it turns out that this guy literally confessed after warming up to the agent, eventually confessed to taking the shot that killed RFK. And it's like very strange. It's like, I know there's JFK's assassination is steeped in conspiracy. There's no way the story as presented to us, the official story, is accurate. Just no way. The magic bullet, that doesn't happen. Physics doesn't allow that to happen. And it's just the narrative that we're forced to consume. And so if you're a intelligent human being that has read or looked at the story, you know that you're being fed some shit. Okay. So anyway, this guy Files. He comes up. He starts confessing to this cop. This cop actually ended up dying, right? The investigative journalist. He ended up dying. Just old age or something along those lines. Maybe cancer. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, just recently, a new investigative journalist picked up the story and started running with it and actually put a documentary together and put it on YouTube for free, just to watch it, for everybody to watch, rather. This guy is incredibly intelligent. He's an older dude, right? When he grew up, I think he was born in the 60s, I think, maybe late 50s. Great hair dude. Lived a life of crime. Basically, he joined the military, completed 4 years successfully, got out, immediately got hooked up with like the mob and whatnot, and then just lived that life. And he was a contract killer. He was a drug, guns, and weapon and money runner. He did all sorts of crazy things. And just one day, right? The story goes as he tells it. It's his boss was like, "Hey, get your shit together. We're going down to Texas. We're gonna go. We got a new contract." And he's like, "Okay, cool. What are we doing?" JFK. He's like, "Okay," because he didn't like him anyway. Like, easy. It's just another person. We'll just knock him out. And he tells this very convincing story. And if you watch the thing, it makes a lot of sense. But a part of his conversation, though, is very much there is collusion with three-letter agencies in his story, and they aren't central to him because he has a handler in his organization in the mob, right? That's based out of Chicago, and his handler though is interacting with the CIA as he names them, and yeah, it's just crazy. So anyway, tying that back to the conversation that we just were having with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, if the CIA, okay, let's just hypothetically discuss this. Let's just say the CIA was responsible or had a hand in July 13th. And these are the same people that tried to take out, or that successfully took out JFK. And they have successfully toppled how many governments across the world, right? Likely responsible for Ukraine in 2014. I mean, that's what they do all the time. And now you're saying on public TV in front of them and everybody else that you're going to work in a cabinet as a person who's going to route out, who's going to publicly air out their dirty laundry, specifically around assassinations, and then deal with that corruption, ensure they can't propagandize the United States citizens or anywhere else for that matter, and basically completely change the narrative of how that organization runs. Are they just going to let this happen?
No, you're basically describing Mount Everest climb with no supplies.
It's not even a climb, dude. They're going to get murked on the way to the base.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like what Trump, RFK Jr., Musk, all of these people that are coming out within the last month since Trump's assassination attempt, 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. In that amount of time, there's been this opening up of the American spirit. And the American people are really fucking sick of all of the crap that's happening. And that was the tipping point. And so I'm really hopeful. I get the pessimistic viewpoint that it's too big to fail, that there's nothing we can do, that it's already there. It's set in stone. The story's written, right? We're done. Our goose is cooked. I'm really hopeful right now in this moment, watching RFK join Donald Trump, that we're going for good things, that this is a huge turning point for our country, and the U-turn is happening, and we're moving forward with the direction change that we've been wanting and needing for a few years now. So that's where I'm going to be hopeful. That's where I'm going to put my bet. I'm a bad gambler. I lose.
Yes, you're terrible. You should not wage this bet. I mean, so for one, there's two big problems. Okay, and for the first one is, while I would normally in our conversations basically feed you the other line, okay, on this is that you're crazy. Nobody wants Trump to be president, and the people that do are imbeciles for what he might do to our country. However, based on our previous conversations and everybody else who's been listening, my mind has changed. I'm still not a big fan of Trump the man, but I am a big fan of what he might do as a president compared to Kamala Harris.
Right.
But so the big problem is that there was a lot of people in this country that are fervent in getting Kamala elected. I mean, they were not. It's really confusing too. It's like
it's
the American
not people either, though, right? It's not people. It's organizations.
So no. It's I've had conversations. So I have had conversations with people who are diehard Harris supporters, like in love. They could barely hear me say the word Trump without them losing their minds.
Yeah.
Okay, like this was just recently. This was literally last weekend, and so it was good. It was good. I needed to hear it because it's very easy to get lost in your own narrative and your own perception. But no, these people were serious about Kamala, and I was like, well,
but is it because they want to have a Kamala presidency, or is it because they don't want to see a Trump presidency? Right? Because that is Trump's biggest problem and obstacle. It's never been about who he's running against. It's about him. You know, if anybody, if the election was an honest election in 2020, nobody voted for Biden and Harris. They voted against Donald Trump. Right? And that's the biggest unsurmountable freaking odds that Trump has.
You need to get that out of your brain.
No, dude, like
So yes, you're right in that some people voted Biden because he was not Trump. You're 100% right. But that is not the majority of that side. The Democratic left, the constituents that make up those people, the majority of them are pro Biden Harris.
Yeah, but I've driven around the country and I've never seen Biden stickers on bumpers.
I know where you've driven around, and you haven't been around the places where you would see them.
I've been through Seattle, man. I've been through Cali in the last 4 years.
First of all, Seattle, this state, I mean, Seattle's got its own problems. Okay,
I've been in Oregon, you know, I've been all over the place.
It would be Portland. I mean, Portland specifically. The rest of Oregon is like Kamala who. They can't even pronounce Kamala. It's Kamala. Okay. Then you got San Francisco, LA, and then that's it for that entire state. The rest of the state is very red too. It would not take a lot to flip Canada. I actually don't think with proper marketing, but it doesn't even matter. You have to go to some of these states, and if you talk to the people and actually ask them what their feelings are, as I do, because especially it's interesting where I live right now. I live in a much smaller town, and there's Trump everywhere. Trump. And so I can go talk to anybody and say, hey, what do you think about Kamala? And I get an earful. It's great. Right. I love it. But then I literally just cross a bridge and then I bring up Trump and I'm the devil. Right.
Right.
Anyway, but trust me, those people exist, man. They what you have to understand. There's a difference between the left, the establishment, and the left, the people, the constituency. Okay.
Absolutely.
The constituency, like myself, still believe in a more social America. We would rather see our tax-paying dollars go to infrastructure, healthcare, all those things. Some more regulation to make sure that these fucking big companies don't go out of their way to do what they're doing exactly right now, et cetera, et cetera. Those people exist, and they believe erroneously, in my now opinion, that the left, the leaders in the left, can make this happen. That's not going to fucking happen. Clearly, that's not going to happen now.
I guess what my main sticking point was to everything, right, is that when you talk to someone who supports the left politically, most of the time they cannot explain why they support the left other than to say Donald Trump. If you talk to somebody on the left and they explained how the left was benefiting the American people within the last 16 years, and you had somebody explain to me how they've been voting, and it wasn't just, for the last 4 years, I just don't want Donald Trump in there, and I would gladly have a conversation with somebody that could explain to me what benefit they're seeing in their country, from a Biden administration, because I'd love to hear that. Really, I haven't heard anybody say they loved Biden. They loved what he's been doing for the country. They love the gas prices and the grocery prices and the immigrants in their counties and their neighborhoods. I haven't heard anybody talk to me about what benefit that he's brought. Even back in 2020, when they were just running and it was just words, I didn't hear a coherent argument other than you can't get Trump back elected. He's going to destroy the country. That was the argument.
Yes, that's the easy one. But what you're asking for, the average American is not going to have. And this is true for the right as well. If I go, in my little town that is all pro-Trump, if I go ask any of them about why you're voting, give me your favorite Trump policy, they're either going to say, Roe v. Wade, or they're going to talk about the border. It's going to be one of those two things.
Maybe.
And that's it. If you ask any of the
Those are
complicated
polarizing
things,
ones, you know.
No, sure. But the left would say the same thing. Interestingly, they would say, if you talk about the people in the left and you ask why you're voting for Kamala, they're also going to say the border. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, well, didn't they just fail on the border?
She's going to fix it, man.
Yeah. Well, Trump and his walls.
Like,
yeah,
she's
but
fixing
Trump,
it day one.
Exactly. It's anyway, but the point is this, is that you will get that. You will get the very, very superficial stuff, the stuff that CNN talks about, the stuff that Fox talks about. That's it. The technical points of their actual administrative policies, no. Like, I would say it would be 1 in 100 people that you would have to talk to that would actually understand it. And then those people we should probably have on the podcast, because they're probably no more than me.
Probably.
Anywho.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that point. It is hard to maintain your life and pay attention to what's going on in the country and be knowledgeable about everything that's going on behind the scenes on that stuff. You have to have pretty much no life, which I get.
Yeah, it's like me and you. We literally, this is our entertainment. We are our 6 people. I know it's very silly. It's very. I don't recommend it for anybody who is watching this. If you are not currently just living and breathing politics, don't. It will just take years off your life needlessly. It's not like we're going to change anything here, and you're just going to fret and worry and get mad and happy for things that have zero impact in your life. That you already they will have impact in your life, but you'll have zero ability to control them. So don't worry about it. Anyway, okay. So let's talk about this RFK. Meeting at his press conference.
I'm telling you right now, that is the best 48-minute speech I've ever seen. Like, if we were in a different place in this country and RFK Jr. was running for president and we didn't have this existential crisis that's going on in our country, I would cast a vote for RFK just because of his concession speech or his
okay. So first of all, what did we watch? Because somebody might be listening to this a month from now or 2 years.
So today, on August 23rd, down in Arizona, RFK Jr. suspended his election. Right, he spoke for 48 minutes. You can watch it on YouTube right now, and it is moving. I mean, it's a good speech. And it is an American viewpoint ideal. Like, it is everything that Americans are looking for in a person. You know, that is the kind, caring, person that we want at the helm of our country. And it is spectacular to watch him talk about everything that's been going on, all the legal battles that he's been going through with the Democratic Party, who he's been a lifelong Democrat. And the moment that he didn't follow their narrative, they turned their backs and their knives on him, and he has had legal battle after legal battle. I mean, every single week for the last 16 months, he's had a legal battle. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. And it's electoral or election interference at its finest. And I'm building a list about election interference, and we're going to get into that, and it's going to be
we need to. So yes, RFK was giving his secession speech, right? Suspension. There we go.
Because he's just suspending his campaign.
Yes.
And he's suspending his campaign ballot for the 10 battleground states because he doesn't want to take votes from Trump, but he doesn't care if you vote for him in a blue or a red state.
Right. And so what made this speech specifically, interesting is that he really did call out a lot of the problems that we've also been talking about on this podcast. We talk about it in our texts. We've been talking about it for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
And so the first one that was interesting, we were just talking about here, is just what the DNC will do to maintain what it perceives its stranglehold on American, politics.
Yeah.
And so for those of you guys who don't know, RFK was running as an independent. So to do that successfully, you have to acquire so many votes for every single state. So every state you have to go lobby in. You have to present the state legislature with documented proof of, hey, I've acquired X amount of signatures meeting your criteria to be included on your ballot as an independent. And for somebody like RFK, even though he comes from a wealthy family, he's not like mega elite wealthy. He can't just go out and buy it. Yeah. He can't just this doesn't just happen overnight. So he has to campaign. He has to literally go perform a grassroots effort. He has to go find people in every single state who want to volunteer their time, because he can't pay them, to go out and canvass neighborhoods and cities to elicit those signatures and then collect enough to go to the state. Anyway, so it's a tiring process for everybody involved. And so he did this for every single state, him and his supporters, right? His volunteers.
I am going to say one thing real quick. Yep. He didn't initially start his campaign run as an independent. He tried to get on the ballot for a Democratic nomination against Joe Biden because he felt that he was in cognitive decline and felt like he would have been a better nomination for the Democratic Party. And they threw up so many hurdles that he had to bow out of that race, that nomination race for the Democratic Party, and run an independent campaign. All right. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's a really good point.
That up real quick.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really good point. And so basically what we're saying is that it was this movement of people that were inspired by RFK and his message to go out and pick up the torch and, try to do everything in their power to make this a reality. You start by getting him on the ballot. And so that alone was insanely tough. The states don't make it easy to do.
It was something like 1 million people.
They needed 1 million signatures.
1 million signatures per state. And then every state that they brought those signatures to,
I think they needed
the Democrats bring them to court on those signature ballots and go through them for weeks.
So the DNC, the Democrats are a group of people who believe in a certain
Democratic
ideology.
National Committee.
Yes.
When I shorthand Democrats, I'm not talking about you, Jesse. I'm not talking about my wife. Okay. I'm not talking about my wife's mom. I'm talking about freaking Schumer. Okay. And AOC. I'm talking about the politicians. And I want everybody who's watching us to know that. I understand there is a difference between the people and the party, right? You talk to your average, ordinary Republican conservative person, and they don't espouse the same things that the Republican Party talks about, right? There is a drastic difference between the two of them. So that's...
Yes. All I'm saying is when you say shit like the left and the Democrats, them's fighting words.
I know.
Because I immediately, it literally I want to just...
I get you. I'm
going to reach across the desk and smack you.
Punch me through TCP/IP.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, the point being is that to do this is very, very tough. I think you needed a grand total. I think all 50 states combined, it was like 1 million votes, 1 million signatures, which is a lot.
I think it was
you look it up real quick while I'm talking. But because every state has its own requirements and they're unique, and how they're going to raise the signatures, et cetera, et cetera. It's all unique. Anyway, every single state where RFK, so every single state in the nation had a lawsuit when those signatures were submitted. The DNC funded those lawsuits in an effort to keep RFK off the ballot, right? They tried to make it sound like it was an effort in transparency and anti-corruption. They were saying that he was making all this up, that nobody would vote for him, and so therefore nobody would want to sign this thing. But that's not the case. He 100% was trying to make this happen, and they were fighting him at every single turn. If it was about corruption, then they would have had something. But every single lawsuit was thrown out at great expense to RFK, because he had to go fight these things in court. Yeah. So if there was corruption, if that was the truth, then it would have came up in one of the 50 or more lawsuits that were filed against him in this endeavor to be on the ballot. Did you find how many?
I'm still looking.
Okay. So, but this was just part of it. Right after RFK's RFK's suspension speech, which, by the way, this is also super interesting. We're about to get into the second point here in a second. But CNN, MSNBC, and some other news outlets were airing RFK's, were televising his speech live. And about a minute and a half, 2 minutes into it, they literally cut it. They're like, oh shit, because what did he start doing 2 minutes into it? Basically saying, hey, Harris is not who you think she is. You don't know anything about her. She doesn't do anything unscripted. She hasn't been in a single debate. And more importantly, these news agencies that are reporting to be fair and honest and balanced, they won't have me on them. They won't let me come to speak. They won't let me have my fair share. But meanwhile, they'll bring on people to trash talk me, yada yada yada. Anyway, so they cut it there. These agencies cut it there, and then went out and found two of his cousins. CNN did this anyway. He went and found two of RFK's cousins, brought them on, and then they just chat talk about Robert for the next 20 minutes. Like, why? Like, it's so clear what's happening here. And not to mention these two people are just ginormous pieces of shit. Why?
Yeah.
Can you support this guy, your uncle?
Yeah, it was $1 million for the country. It was about 10,000 per state, other than California, Florida, Texas. 100,000 for each of those states.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And New York was 40,000 or 45,000.
And that makes sense, right? Idaho is going to require a lot less.
Yeah. And that was according to his campaign. So,
yeah,
we'll just say that was accurate.
Yeah, and then that makes sense. So in any case, the DNC did not make it easy for him to just even be on the ballot. And so we want to talk about how this is a democratic nation when we see things like this happen, where private institutions, the DNC is a private organization.
It is a private organization
doing everything it can to keep RFK off the ballot.
No one in this country voted for anybody in the DNC, right?
Nope.
They just exist.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's a little bit sad that you need to get that many signatures to run and get your name on a ballot. But maybe they do that in the event that they have 1,000 people running for president,
Right. I mean, and that should be okay. Yes, the people with more money are going to have more advertising, but the people with more money are likely to be more successful in life anyway, right? Yeah. They have done something to do to merit the campaign budget, et cetera, et cetera. Or in a perfect world, using their popularity, they've been able to just raise money to the public and whatnot to get to where they need to be. But even Bernie Sanders was saying it, if you're trying to run for office, 95% of the time, the person with the most money is just going to win.
Right. So. And I think that's kind of why they use it as a metric for success, which campaign has the biggest war chest or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you can reach out and touch the most people, and you can fight the most legal battles, apparently.
Yep.
Which is a little bit sad that that's where we've gotten in our country. That you have to wage political warfare with a whole cohort of lawyers just to get anywhere in this country. We shouldn't have to jump through that.
No. So, I mean, the second part of his campaign, or the second part of his speech, was media control.
I think that was still the first part. I mean,
DNC corruption was the first part, and then media control.
Yeah, because it kind of
into it.
They feed. Yeah, how that the media, the vast majority of the media, have become the Democratic Party.
Right.
And an arm of the Democratic Party.
So it's I mean, just to spell it out plainly, right? Let's just use any of the major media, the major tech titans that exist out there. Okay. You can start with Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, right, did all of his stuff in California, right? Yeah. In Meta. So we're talking about Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, everything. And the Sun, right? That is owned by Meta. It's huge. It's a massive platform with crazy international presence. These guys, they don't sit in the DNC They're not cabinet. They don't hold cabinet positions or anything like that. But they are massively incentivized to ensure to help their political party win. And they just happen to own the biggest mode of communication that the planet has ever seen, right? These social media platforms. It's so cheap and so easy to reach out to everybody and have crazy impact. And the leaders of these companies, the board of directors of these companies, and they're all very much left leaning, very wealthy, and happy to use their power and influence to help the political party. Yeah. And at the heart, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like you should be, as a person, you should be able to do that.
It sounds like an American ideal. I mean, it really does. It sounds like, hey, man, like I want to reach out and touch Americans' lives and make everybody's lives better. It sounds like there's nothing wrong with it, but that amount of control, unfortunately, leads to a problem that we have been seeing with a huge amount of censorship and putting their thumb on the scale of our American politics. The censorship alone is huge.
That's right.
As RFK says, it's usually not the good guys who are doing the censorship. In any case that you look at throughout the world, it's usually not the good guys that are doing the censorship.
Right now, just to give you an example, right? If you're onto Facebook, like somebody did this actually. They went onto Facebook and they said, "Hey, ABC, it would be great if you included RFK in the upcoming debate that you're going to host, right? Or the upcoming debate that Harris and Trump are about to do." And the post was deleted because it violated community standards. That is what we call censorship. Yeah. And that is so overt. It's so crazy. And it's where's the harm in that post? Obviously, ABC is going to tell the guy to go pound sand, but to straight up delete the post and then flag the account as violating community standards, that's aggressive. That's aggressive censorship for digital platforms. That
person probably got 3 days of timeout, penalty box.
Minimum.
He might have gotten his account completely deleted. We don't know.
Yeah.
Depends on how pissed off they were all.
This is the irony is palpable in that these same news agencies, rightfully so, attacked Putin, right? Because Putin won with an 88% landslide victory. However, Putin had a titan's grip over the media in Russia. They say and do exactly as he wants. And so everything that came out of all these Russian news outlets were just how straight and narrow the Putin campaign was, how everybody loves him, and how all the people that were opposing him in the elections were just crooks and thieves, right? Nazis. And meanwhile, that's exactly what these media organizations are doing, that have been doing to Trump and RFK. Right, calling them all sorts of things, keeping them out of social media, keeping them, or when they are in social media, making sure the narrative is just toxic, right, making them look as terrible as possible. And of course, on CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, it's just all bad news.
And that just fuels the echo chamber that people get caught in because you don't have any differing opinions that are being brought to light that you can hear or discourse about. Like it's pretty awful that we live in a time where ideas and thoughts are dangerous, right? We should be able to talk about everything and anything that we want to. We are American citizens. We should be able to do that. And any political party that disagrees with that is a bad guy, plain and simple. Like I still remember watching videos of free speech rallies on college campuses where people wanted the ability to express themselves however they wanted to, and that is a historical movement that we had in this country in the 60s and the 70s. And that is gone. That ideological aspect of our political parties are gone.
Yep. It's everywhere, right? So within Biden's White House, right? They were attacking RFK and censoring him so bad. RFK had to sue the Biden administration and get an injunction on all the actions they were taking against him. It was awarded said injunction.
Yeah.
It was later upheld when they tried to countersue, right? Tried to appeal the decision. And federal judge Terry Dalton actually tried that case. Like he was a judge of the case, and he sided with RFK. In his closing statement said, "This is the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the USA." Gavel slam. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the White House.
His decision was like 155 pages long.
Yes.
I can't imagine how many examples of censorship that is.
A lot. I actually want to go read it.
155 pages. You know, it wasn't him rambling on for 155 pages. It was probably example after example after example of censorship. So, why am I looking at the top of your head, Jesse?
I'm taking notes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just saying, are you just trying to brag about your glorious head of hair?
No, my balding head of hair. Yeah, no. I actually want to go. I'm trying to. I'm going to go find that 155 page doc and actually just want to read it. Because I gotta know. Yeah. It's got to be great. There's going to be some.
I'm sure there's some juicy tidbits in that. I'm not going to read it. I'll let you fill me in. Nope. I'm going to watch Trump rallies and
go read it.
Other stuff.
I get so annoyed when somebody wants to argue with me about a thing. I'm like, hey, here's my position. I'm coming from this wealth of knowledge. Yeah. Here is a paper. Yeah. And this just happened recently. It was a 77-page paper, double spaced. So, really like 37, 38 pages, truly. Okay. Right. Not a big deal. And it was technical, but written for a layman. So you can follow along, and it was great. It was a great read. Okay. Lots of diagrams and whatnot. So it was not hard to read this thing. And yet nobody could find the time to read what was really just about 30 pages with some pictures. They couldn't do it. They literally put the document into ChatGPT and then had it spit out the results, the ChatGPT interpretation of it, and which comes with a whole bunch of bias, right? Because this thing is trained to think a certain way. So if the document has a narrative that it perceives to be that ChatGPT perceives to be conspiracy or fringe, it will say it. This document espouses, fringe theories on blah 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 blah. That's not a summary of the document. That's an opinion on the research. By all means. And if it is, the person needs to go and figure that out. But you need to, if you're summarizing something, just summarize the contents. Anyway, if the person that is listening to this hears me, not talking shit, I'm just saying it'd be nice if we just read the fucking thing so that we can all be on the same page.
For me, right, we're talking. This is a conversation. We're having a dialogue, right? Yeah. It would be no different than if you wanted to join in at a table. You heard somebody talking some cool freaking stories or whatever, and you're like, I want in on that conversation. It sounds awesome. But at the same time, if you're going to come and say, you guys are idiots, whatever, but at least show some documentation on how we're idiots. I'm all about to read it. I'll read it.
Hell yeah.
I will gladly read it all day long, but I'm 100% down. Please join in on the discourse. I would love every second of it. And as soon as I figure out how to post on our YouTube channel, I'm going to be all over it.
You're literally a moderator of the channel.
I 100% understand that. I just need to learn how to log into it while keeping my YouTube channel going.
This is a former information systems technician, ladies and gentlemen. He can't figure out how to log into YouTube.
I've spent all of 5 minutes looking at and thinking about it, and I have not done any research. Oh, man.
Yes.
So, but yeah, if you're going to say something, do some research, look into what we've been talking about, and try to prove us wrong. I'm all down for that, 100% for that.
And so yeah, we were actually talking about this before the show. We're gonna start live broadcasting these. We're gonna dual stream it on Twitch and YouTube. We're still gonna publish the podcast just like we normally have, but it will also be live streamed. It depends on how many people in chat. We're not going to spend our time just reading and interacting with chat. That's not what we're doing here. It's really selfishly Zach and I, old buddies, catching up on our favorite topics of conversation, which is politics, right? And then just battling it out. But by all means, chat will be there. If stuff is super interesting in there, then we'll 100% talk about it, right? If somebody's asking some really interesting questions or presenting some really interesting, arguments, something like that, we'll 100% take a look and include it in the conversation. But the point is that it's just another way to kind of involve everybody who's listening and who might be more inclined to join live.
And another thing that we've really talked about doing is bringing on friends, anybody that we think would have interesting dialogue for us to all sit around and talk about. I think it would be fun to do that, and if there's anybody out there that really has a lot to say and wants to say something, I mean, we'll probably put them on the podcast.
So. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point. It's politics at the tavern. Yeah. And at the tavern, you're going to get all sorts of crazies. You're going to get, people you like, people that annoy you, right? People that play really fucking annoying music on the jukebox that are 28-minute songs that just don't stop.
Macarena, all those people. 5 times in a row.
Yeah, right. They're all here. And then meanwhile, Zach and I are just trying to get through a game of pool with the few beers that we ordered. Anyway, okay. So then he moved on, RFK, to kind of really indict the military industrial complex, where he just laid into the whole Ukraine thing.
Yeah. That was definitely the second part, because the first part was all media and, the Democratic Party. The DNC. Okay. And the rules and restrictions and everything like that goes into it. And then jumping right into the massive warmongering that the Democratic Party has been doing. And he just lambasted Biden and his administration for all of the negligence that they've been doing in this Ukraine war with Russia, basically causing it, in his opinion. So it was fascinating to watch him talk about it, because I mean, he has a viewpoint and information that I haven't heard, and it's great to hear it. So I don't know.
I mean, there's plenty, right? There's plenty. He started straight up with kind of criticizing just how we got involved with Ukraine. And so the narrative that we read on TV is that Putin is this hot-headed dictator who woke up one day and was like, I'm going to take over Ukraine. And did so. Okay. I mean, because it was certainly a surprise to the world. I mean, we kind of saw it coming. He was putting troops on the border and doing all these things. But for the most part, it kind of just came out of nowhere, right? There was a month leading up to it, and all of a sudden, boom, he's in Ukraine. Took us all by surprise. However, I did have the side bet with my college buddies, and I was right. I was like, hey, guys. And I called it like to the day. I was like, I think on this day it's going to happen. And I was right. Want some sweet, sweet digital cash. But the thing is it's not just as easy as crazy Putin decided to invade Ukraine, right? Yeah. He did feel threatened. And RFK really dug into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to watch him break down the whole thing, where he was talking about how we were pushing NATO and surrounding him and doing incredibly hostile, antagonistic acts against Putin, and basically egging him on through diplomacy to attack Ukraine. And I a little side topic off of this, I watched an interview with Lindsey Graham talking about how we wanted this to happen because Ukraine has an incredible amount of rare earth minerals that we don't want Russia to have. And having a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine is in our benefit, because now the Ukraine owes us for all of the money that we spend over there in their defense, and they're going to pay us in rare earth minerals, basically. That's the gist of the whole situation. And it's just, you hear like an eagle screech at the top of its lungs, and it's like, another country freaking freed for their resources.
Yep.
So
and that's just part of it, right? I mean, this, interestingly enough, he even so he called out on this thing how it started off with a regime change, CIA-led regime change in 2014. Kicking out whoever the guy's name was, installing a pro-West, president, and using that alliance there with the new guy to get NATO, right? To get Ukraine into NATO, right? Directly against what Russia wants, right? Because NATO exists to keep Russia and China boxed in. Really, that's the only reason NATO's around.
For some reason, I feel like it was in the 90s when they did the regime change under Clinton, but I'll have to double check.
2014 is what was RFK.
Well, I know that's when the Crimea thing happened, with, I know that's when this war kind of like really kicked off, but I think the regime change that he was talking about was in like 92 or something like that with Clinton.
Yep. So that's followed by, that was in 2014. 2019, the U.S. walks away from the Minsk Agreement, where we're basically is a peace treaty between the U.S. and Russia, nuclear deproliferation, and all these things. And then, lastly, in April 2022, Zelensky and Putin had a working peace agreement. Okay, they had signed one. And in 2022, the U.S. basically ensured that was all but destroyed. And in the wake of that peace agreement basically being ripped up, immediately following that, the U.S. brought in Aegis, nuclearly capable weapon systems into Romania and Poland.
Yeah.
So now you tell me, if you're Russia, what do you do? What do you do? I am not advocating for this, by the way. If I'm Russia, I'm not invading Ukraine ever. But what we're saying though is that Putin is backed into a corner. Like his world is quickly shrinking around him. He's got to do something, and this is what he decides to do. Again, it could not be a worse decision, because it's exactly what the military-industrial complex wants. They want the war. They're goading him into a war. Absolutely. They have no intentions. You don't nuke Russia with an Aegis weapon system. It's not going to happen. That's not how it works.
Right.
And more importantly, Ukraine isn't going to waltz into Russia either. Ukraine is they're Russian descendants, right? Back in the day, they were all one big country together. They had their I know the history. They had their differences, but they are brothers. Okay, they're not. It's just like, it'd be weird, like if Canada's like, "Fuck you, United States," and starts rolling in tanks. You'd be like, "What the hell, Canada?" It'd be really, really weird. And that's exactly what. So we don't have to worry about Ukraine invading. Poland, they have no interest, right? It's not like any of the Baltic states can. They're tiny. There's nothing that they can do. Finland, same deal. Finland, Sweden, NATO, nothing. They have their armies are puny compared to the might of Russia. And then of course all the stands, same stuff, right? They're not that they're going to be joining NATO anytime soon, but they're not a threat. So really, Putin just had to keep his head on his shoulders and look to diplomacy to kind of solve these issues. But that's not what the West wanted. I should say that's not what the military-industrial complex wanted. They wanted a war, and they got it. Do we blame Putin?
Yeah, I mean, it takes two to dance, right?
So. Yeah. But that's exactly the point. It takes two. And so RFK's point is just that this was a setup.
Yeah.
They were leading him to the dance floor, and then he accepted the do-si-do.
Yeah.
And then to blame Putin for accepting the dance that we offered is very strange.
Like, well, we offered, you could have said no, so it's your fault.
Basically.
That's the gist I got,
Yeah.
So
and Biden was clear in what he wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted regime change.
Yeah.
Right. That's what he's been saying. It's like, yeah, well, let's use this as an opportunity to make sure that Putin's out of power and he never can do this again.
Yeah.
And then
maybe
of course,
that's to do with like the BRICS situation. I don't know. And that's something else that, RFK brought up, is that, we've got all of these powers throughout the world creating a BRICS system. So it's pretty interesting to see it all happen, which is absolutely a threat to U.S. everything.
Russia was a signatory of BRICS, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The countries. Yeah. They're the signing members of BRICS. I'm not sure how many more countries are involved at this moment, but they're building a cryptocurrency. They predominantly trade in the Chinese yuan. And why is that a thing? Why do we care? It's actually a very powerful statement. Is that you have these 5 countries that are significantly they have powerful economies, not using the dollar. They're not using the USD.
It is a cryptocurrency that is going to be backed by rare earth minerals, kind of like the gold standard was for US dollars.
So there's BRICS, the cryptocurrency, and BRICS, the organization. Okay. And it literally stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
Yeah.
And so not to be confused with the cryptocurrency that they want to build and mature to use as a platform to trade amongst each other. Which is again powerful, right? Because they're circumventing the need of the US dollar, which weakens it and weakens the United States.
Basically, just
go ahead.
Quick Google that I did, it's like it just says BRICS reportedly plan to use their new currency with gold and other metals of intrinsic value, so that it would be like buying gold for holding the currency. So,
best of luck.
Yeah.
Best of luck to that. Yeah, because you literally, for that to work, you have to basically do what go back to the gold standard.
That's exactly what their point in there is
and
that
how easy is our
currency, it can't be inflated because we have a gold backing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was the huge draw to the American currency before we got rid of our gold standard. Right. And now it can be inflated however it wants. They can just print out a shit ton of money because
that's
it's
the
not
point of fiat. It's the point of a fiat system is to enable trade. But yes, it's not backed by anything. And I'm not exactly sure how I briefly read it as well. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to ensure that their system has this parity to rare earth metals. Like, it's kind of like Fort Knox. Nobody believes there's any gold in Fort Knox anymore.
Well, back in the day, maybe we had it, maybe we didn't.
We never know. Nobody ever knew. And so, like, it was always
maybe we did the moon landing, maybe we didn't. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, according to ChatGPT the other day, was saying the moon landing was a fake.
Yeah. I'm
increasingly
of the belief that it was 100% fake. So
apparently you can go buy a telescope and just go look at the shit on the moon that we left behind. But I'm not spending the $8,000 though to go prove this conspiracy. But it might be interesting to go borrow somebody's. Anyway, okay. We
RFK.
Right.
Sorry.
RFK. Yeah, so the other thing too is we there's some other shit that we did that this whole thing is kind of going against common sense. The Nord Stream pipeline, that whole disaster, blaming it on Russia, which makes zero fucking sense. Russia's not going to cripple its own primary source of money. It
sounded like a US op from everything that I read.
Who else has the technology to get down there and do the thing?
So
there's the United States, maybe Norway, and their 2 subs were dramatically outfitted to go conduct this thing. But no.
Sure shit wasn't Germany, because now they're chopping down their forests to keep warm in the winter.
Yeah. And so it's the other part of that, right? So this whole war is consuming all of Europe. So basically, we have imposed all these sanctions on Russia, forcing Europe to move lockstep with us, aka they can't buy any, or they have to massively reduce the amount of oil and natural gas they buy from Russia. Now they have to come up with an alternative fuel source on their own. They didn't have.
We're over here begging OPEC and Saudi Arabia to produce more oil so that the Europeans and us can still use oil, because we don't have any oil because we turned off our spigot, and now we turned off Russia's spigot. And so everybody's like, come on, OPEC, you got to pony up for the rest of the world. And OPEC's like, nah, get fucked, Biden. So spectacular.
It is an impressive situation that we have found ourselves in.
In 4 years.
Yes, it did not take long. And what's also really interesting is that this was all in the spirit of weakening Russia. And yes, a lot of this has, right? We are depleting their military resources. We are costing them a lot of civilian
Killing,
military casualties. A
killing
lot
a
of
lot of young men in both countries.
Yes, a lot. So in that respect, there is that, right? They don't have as much money coming in from their oil exports or their natural gas exports. They're trying to divert as much of that to China as possible, right? To kind of make up the difference. So it is having an impact, but it had a dramatic impact on Europe, the first line of defense against a suddenly, antagonistic Russia. If they decided to go kinetic, it would be Europe that would have to defend them. But now Germany, the very country that we're relying on to, kind of be that bulwark against the Russians, is too busy dealing with their own with the problems created by the war itself. So it's an amazing catch-22. Meanwhile, we sit here in the United States, surrounded by ocean, not really giving a flying fuck. As long as we're selling all those people our weapons. Well, we're selling the United States government the weapons to then just give to the Ukraine with the promise of repayment. Maybe.
I mean, the only reason those companies exist is because the U.S. government buys their stuff. It's not like they can sell their weapons to U.S. citizens or regular people throughout the world. They sell it to the U.S. government. The U.S. government trades it throughout the world for favors and money.
Right.
So
before we get into the next topic of this conversation, so RFK then moves from the war into kind of like national health. So let's talk a little bit on RFK's, let's just dig into who RFK is as a human being. Like, what does he care about?
Yeah. I haven't delved deep into RFK as a person. I've seen some cool interviews of his, him working out on the beach in California, just the funsies, little things, that are fairly popular to spread around. I've heard the rumors about the worm in his brain, that kind of stuff, but he seems like a genuine champion for the few causes that he truly cares about, and health and education of the American people, especially our children in this country, is like the tippy top of the things that he cares about. The anti-war stance that we've just been talking about, that's up there as well. And the Democratic Party itself, he truly cares about the Democratic. I mean, he has bled, Democratic Party his entire life. He said that he was a Democratic Party person before he could even vote, just because of who his family was. And it's crazy for him to be where he is today, standing on a stage with Trump, which I can imagine everybody in his family thoroughly detests, including his wife and children. So it takes balls for a man to give up his morals and ideals and stand with somebody who is a political opponent, and that they don't disagree or agree. They disagree on a lot, but they don't agree on a lot. But it seems like these three major parts that RFK talks about, Donald Trump and him have a lot in common on, children being the number one thing that they have in common. And I think listening to Trump talk about children and what he talks about with, the American people and people doing his interviews, he cares an incredible amount about American children. He's been talking about the same thing that RFK has been talking about, making sure that we have safe, healthy food in our country so that we don't have this incredible medical emergency that we have within our community, where I think RFK said we went from 1% to 66% of our population having massive medical issues within 50, 60 years. And he blames it on a lot of stuff like seed oils, the sugar, the hyper processed grains. It's a really good listen. I'm going to say it a third time. Go watch his speech. It is really, really, really good and eye-opening.
Yes.
that's what I took away from who he was as a person, what he cared about. And it was the things that moved me the hardest, watching a speech. So
that's exactly it. Right. So he does his for a long time, he's been trying to figure out what's going on with American youth. Right? He's trying to figure out like why uniquely in America are half our kids being born, not half, but a significant amount are being born pre-diabetic. Why is 2/3 of our youth? Yeah, why is 2/3 of our youth straight up ineligible to join the military due to health reasons, right? Self-imposed or otherwise. Like, it's just absolutely insane. We're seeing, autism rates that used to be 1 in 10,000 when he was a kid that are now 1 in 36. You're seeing unprecedented, rise in cancer. We're seeing, wemen on antidepressants at numbers that have never before seen. 15% of high schoolers on Adderall. 500,000 kids in the country are on SSRIs, for God's sake. The list goes on. And he's like trying to figure out why this is, like, what is going on. Also, there's there's many other things, but I'm not even gonna get on it because we get immediately deplatformed. But because of how sensitive some of these subjects are. But the net is he cares about kids, like you're saying, right? And how do we make this country safe for kids? And it starts with what we eat. And like you're saying, everything that we eat is just hyper processed. For God's sakes, the FDA recommends a 2-year-old 10% of their diet should be sugar, should be added sugars.
Yeah. Shredded mini wheats and shit.
We just said, and the FDA and all the other agencies out there under, Food and Health Administration agencies, they all know that our children are going through an epidemic. You're never going to hear about it because it's not in the news, because the news, again, is owned by these very same people. But they know that these kids are going through this crazy epidemic. Diabetes is crushing them at an early age. Why on God's green earth would you then recommend 10% of your diet to be processed sugars or added sugars? That is evil. That's what the word is. The word is evil, and it is 100% comes back down to the dollar.
Yeah,
and the bill.
Something that when you were talking about that really came out of his speech for me was the fact that we are going to start spending $3 trillion annually providing Ozempic to people who are obese with, fatty livers, that kind of stuff. And he said that it's an entirely preventable problem, and they could take that $3 trillion instead and buy organic, healthy food for the entirety of the American people, 3 squares a day instead of Ozempic.
Could do a lot more with $3 trillion. $3 trillion is a lot of money.
I know.
That's $3,000 billion.
You'd probably have change left over to house people, right?
Yeah. You could do a whole, even less. You could pretty much do everything. You could fix this entire country, all of our infrastructure, our homeless, our mental health, food, everything with like less than with about half of that. About 5
until everybody got wise that there's $3 trillion in the pot and they started raising their prices up.
What's even crazier than that is that the company that is making Ozempic, right, can only sell to the United States. It's illegal in the rest of the world.
Yeah,
they can't even sell it in their own goddamn country.
Yeah, it's Denmark, right? Denmark. Yeah. They don't recommend their people take Ozempic, but we're allowing everybody here in our country to do it because somebody's getting rich off.
I mean, the stat, okay? So Ozempic fights obesity, fights fat. Right? You want to lose some fat? Take Ozempic. Right? It's $1,500 a month for 4 injections a month or something like that.
I don't know.
74% of Americans are considered overweight or obese. 74% fall into this category where they would potentially want Ozempic. That is a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
That's hundreds of millions of Americans.
About $3 trillion worth of American dollars right there. It's a lot of incentives.
Just to contrast that to another country, okay? I just said 74% of Americans are considered obese or overweight. That number is 3% in Japan. I just got back from Japan. You can ask my wife. At one point, we're in a taxi driving by, and I saw a fat person that wasn't a sumo wrestler. And I did make that distinction because earlier in the trip, we actually walked by a couple sumo wrestlers. They were huge guys. It was impressive. Yes, they were fat. Okay. But we were more surprised by in person just how fucking massive these individuals are. Like, holy shit, they would mess
They're
me
tall,
up.
dense.
They're big. They're just big human beings. And so anyway, we saw them, and then we actually saw a fat person. And that fat person here in the United States would just blend right in. They weren't even like, I wouldn't call them obese. Japanese would call that person was obese.
They just look like me.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to say it, but I pointed at them. My wife was like, "Wait, who are you pointing at?" I'm like, "It's a fat person," and she's like, "Stop it!" And I was like, "But it's so crazy. It's the first one we've seen. We've seen millions of people."
Yeah.
And it literally is that. It is that that rare in Japan. When they say 3%, that's the entire, like, it is very true. I did not see. I think the entire time I was down there, this time we were down there for 7-8 days. I think I counted maybe less than five actually. And we were in Tokyo the whole time. And so taking the metro amongst the people in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
5. Like here, like I wouldn't make it to my car.
It's easier
swimming in the fat people.
Easier to spot skinny, healthy people than it is fat people.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, it's not, I'm not, I don't mean to ridicule anybody who's overweight or obese. The issues here, like
it's choice do you have? It's all of our food.
Our food is engineered. The crazy, like I watched a documentary on the engineering of Doritos that blew my mind. We're talking decades of research, millions, if not more, of dollars going into engineering a chip that of the perfect weight, consistency, the color, the flavor, the odor, the initial taste, the aftertaste, how long the taste lasts, all of that stuff programmed into every little molecule of that chip. So that by the time you're done eating that one chip, your body's natural reaction is to have another chip and another and another and another. And because they're using fructose, right? Fructose naturally does not make you full. The whole point of it in the animal kingdom is when you get fructose in your system is to keep eating, because it's an awesome way to get extra calories, get extra fat before you run out of whatever it is that you're eating, because it's so rare, right? That's what fructose does in the animal kingdom's brain. That's how we're designed exactly the same way. You get fructose, like, oh shit, this is rare. We should get as much as possible right now so that we can survive the winter or whatever, right? We can just live a little bit longer because we got a little bit of extra energy that we stored as fat in our very otherwise crazy muscular lean bodies. But here we use it as a weapon against ourselves, especially in the United States. So for the obese and overweight people, I'm not trying not to make fun of you. It's literally unless you have tons and tons of money and a health consultant, there's no way you can win this fight.
And you're getting
unless you have
organic farm to table crap.
Exactly.
In from other countries, probably.
Yep.
I spent 2 weeks in Japan in a town called Toyama, and I ate 3 meals a day. Here I eat 2. And I lost weight. I lost 10, 15 pounds in 2 weeks, just eating my face off, because that's what I do when I'm in a foreign port. I go find all the good food. And it was crazy. I didn't exercise. I didn't do anything. I lost 10, 15 pounds. At first I hated it. The first 5, 6, 7 days, I was miserable. I was like, I need sugar right now. I need some gummy bears. I need to find a gummy bear somewhere right now and put it in my face hole. It was ridiculous. I had to go to the foreign section of a supermarket to find any kind of sugar. Even their candy is just blah.
You don't want matcha flavored gummy bears?
Yeah, it wasn't even matcha flavored. I mean, it's regular lemon,
bean paste, bean curd cake. Yeah, red bean. That's another one.
Red bean is good. Yep. It is good.
Yeah. So I actually quoted. I actually took down this quote because here is what RFK wants. Okay, here's what he said he wants him and Trump to focus on, and this is amazing. Okay, I'm just gonna read it out so everybody can hear it. This was straight from his words. So if you're looking for reasons why to vote for somebody, here is, if you're interested in these things as well, maybe cast your vote to Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, ending forever wars, addressing the childhood disease epidemic, securing the border, protecting freedom of speech, addressing the corporate capture of regulatory agencies, and getting the U.S. intelligence agencies out of the business of propagandizing and surveilling Americans and interfering with elections. If that sounds interesting to you, if that's something you would also like, consider Trump as a potential candidate.
Yeah.
Because pretty much all of these things are not on Kamala's ticket.
Yeah. And she might tell you that they are. And then as soon as she's elected, they won't be.
I mean, we could take one of these at a time, right? I mean, so ending forever wars. This has been going on forever. Okay. The Bushes were really great at it, right? This is a GOP thing and a liberal thing, a left and a right thing. We've just been in wars since 9/11. It just has.
It's not even 9/11. I mean, we saw what it did for our economy in World War II, and everybody's economies were destroyed, and we were the only business in town. We made so much money.
Yep.
As a country. And we continued that practice. And selling arms to either side of a conflict, that's just been our bread and butter for a really long time.
A lot of money. It makes the military industrial complex a lot of money. And guess what Trump is not invested in? The military industrial complex. He gives zero shits about how many guns Raytheon sells to Israel. He does not give a fuck, right? Because yes, he is a billionaire himself. He's a real estate mogul, right? That's where he gets his cash from. So I'm sure he might twist the government into buying real estate, right? Or selling it. Great. Go for it. I don't give a fuck. But what he does not care for, he has no taste for, which is completely orthogonal to the Republican Party, is these forever wars. He doesn't care. He's not in the pocket of big military industrial complex.
Why it's so hard for huge war hawks like Lindsey Graham to get behind Trump, but he sees the way that the political winds are blowing.
Yeah,
and he doesn't want to lose his office, so he's jumping behind Trump.
Oh,
but it probably 100%. Makes him sick every single second of it. But
definitely,
you see people like RFK, genuine good human beings, jumping behind somebody that they do not agree with politically, jumping behind Trump. I mean, it should be a huge siren, a wake-up call. Hey, everybody, pay attention to what's happening right now, today, August 23rd, 2024.
Yeah.
Watch the Trump rally. Watch RFK's speech. I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
And he's emotional. He gets emotional in this thing.
RFK is crying at the end of this thing. And not like a little baby. He's just got like manly tears running down his face. And it hurt me to see this man standing up there and caving in on all of the ideals that he's had his entire life just for the small percentage of a chance that he gets into a government office where he can do some good with the last 10 or 15 years of his life. That is amazing to see that kind of sacrifice of everything you've ever stood for just so you can do some good. So I thought it was pretty spectacular.
And another thing is a segue here is for our dear listeners on the podcast who do not know Jesse or Zach at all.
We do say
Zach, though, big-hearted guy, huge heart. Okay, Jesse, not at all. I am cold to the core. Okay, people call me robotic. My wife calls me robotic. I'm sorry. There's so many things that I just do not care about. I grew up in West Africa, where at a very young age I was exposed to the absolute worst of humanity. I got to watch Charles Taylor and his war bands roll through Liberia, right, and literally delimb children when I was 3-4 years old. That shit just has an impact on you, okay? This is not a woe is me story. I'm just letting you know this is why I am. And so when people get all emotional on stage, it does nothing for me. It does not strike a chord. I'm like, you got to get over this. What are you trying to say? Like, just get it out. But it's an awesome difference between Zach and I, because where Zach will offer you that humanity of things and he'll express it and he'll fight for it. I don't. So, we kind of keep each other level in that respect, which is, I don't know, it's kind of fun. And then we also have those arguments because some of these things will come down to the heart of an issue and I can't see it. And Zach's like, you are horrible.
Here is the Cliff Notes.
Yes. Okay. So Forever Wars, childhood disease epidemic. I have not heard Kamala talk about that at all. Nothing, not one word. Have you?
No. And this honestly is pretty near and dear to my heart, because I've had 2 or 3 friends that I know of come down with autoimmune diseases, and one of them just took his life 2 months ago, almost now.
Wow, sorry.
It's rough. It's hard to deal with, but he's been in pain for 12 years. And he had something called Behçet's,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
it just ate away at him. It looked awful, and I remember having conversations with him about how much pain he was in all the time. And he had just turned 40 when he decided to end it all. And so this kind of issue is something that is near and dear to my heart, and it is something that we should absolutely be caring about if we want a country to exist that we are proud of in this world. I would love to see us come back to some kind of a rationale where we are making the good decisions for the next generation and not just spending all of their money and leaving them in debt with terrible food and crippling liberty, where they don't have the ability to say or do or talk or make any decisions or own property.
Right.
And
right.
I genuinely feel that this is the ticket. This is where we're at in our country. This is the decision. We have 2 ways to go. Do you want everything that you ever thought about America to continue the way it is, or do you want everybody else to make your decisions for you and you just go to work? So I kind of feel like that's where we're at right now.
Oh man, at the end of this, let's just get through this list, because I totally want to address that comment, because I was very much in the camp of, like, I like the corruption I know, not the corruption I don't know. And in my mind, I was much more palatable to vote Biden over Trump, because Trump I saw as this crazy person who does press conferences outside of home care and garden facilities, right? So that I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to deal with that, right? He was right. So anyway, well, let's get to that at the end here. So now, for the more astute listener who might know more about Kamala Harris's policies than Zach or myself, Zach and I have both been digging into this and reading up on what she has to say. She could very well have something about the childhood disease epidemic, but has she been living and breathing it for like the last 20 years? Has she literally just dedicated 20 minutes of a 48-minute speech to it, recently? Or is it a footnote in a policy? Is it just a single sentence in an otherwise, verbal diarrhea speech? Look at it like that. Just because she says the words childhood disease epidemic, just because you see the sentence in a policy somewhere, doesn't mean that she cares about it at all, or she's going to dedicate any resources. It's just a footnote so that she can claim it's in there to appease part of the constituents. RFK has been actually dealing with this for decades, and he's working with people who have spent their entire careers to help fix this and identify the root causes of it right now. They're working with the Means brother and sister combo. One is a former surgeon, one is a former farmer lobbyist, and they team together to go fight this childhood disease, epidemic, and RFK is working with them. So anyway, RFK means it when he says it. I would not believe Kamala.
Yeah, they just did a podcast with Tucker Carlson, right? I've been meaning to watch that. We've talked about it. I've seen clips of it, and it is pretty good watch as well. You should add that to your watch list if you're listening to us and you got this far.
Yeah. The other thing is, I was not a bit, dude. Tucker Carlson has easily the most punchable face of anybody on TV.
And voice.
Given the opportunity,
it's like a squeak toy, man.
And his laugh, every time he laughs, I literally just wish bad things upon that man. But especially him being in Fox for as long as he was, I despise the dude. I was like, you are actually bankrupting this country.
I watch a lot of Fox, and I could not watch Tucker Carlson's. I could watch clips of him, but I could not watch a full hour-long episode.
He leaves Fox. He was canned and starts his own podcast. They're two different people. Like the Tucker Carlson,
absolutely different people.
It's I don't even know how Fox was able to present him the way they did.
Yeah.
And he represent himself the way he did versus now. It's insane. So this person that I loathed and despised and wanted to punch in the face, I am now learning so much from, because he's actually just speaking truth and he's giving a platform to other people to really just rally against the establishment that he was maybe somehow, some way in his Fox News broadcast trying to address, but was not coming across that way. Anyway,
I think towards the end when he got fired, it was starting to come out a lot more, and that's why he got canned.
Would have no idea, because I stayed as far away as I possibly could from that person.
Towards the last 6 months of his time at Fox, I watched him more because he started making more sense and saying things that I was like, huh. So
okay,
but yeah, back to the list.
My favorite item on this list: securing the border. If anybody here is thinking about voting Kamala Harris because of her tough border policy, you have got to be fucking kidding yourself, just to be super nice about it. If you look at any metric, I don't care who's presenting it, right? The Biden-Harris administration has just completely failed. I just lost my video. But yeah, so it's okay. It's having a moment, but it has just completely failed. And you're literally going to sit here and tell me that that Trump did a worse job, better job? Like what are you saying? Like, just look at the figures. Trump's at the end of his presidency, border crossing was approaching, the record lows. Some people like say, oh, it's because of COVID. Bullshit. COVID wasn't a thing yet. COVID was a thing if you were in China, but it was really just like, it was nobody really gave a fuck. Right. And so anyway, well, I guess by the end of his
like I said yesterday, Trump had a full year of the COVID pandemic. Right.
I would give him 6 months.
No, it was a full year.
8 months. 8 months.
March of 2020 is when we kind of started caring, and then April or May is when we shut down the economy, under Trump. And then we came.
So 8 months. Give him 8 months.
Losing the election in November, and then January, is when we had the insurrection on January 6th. So, he had a 10 full month, 12, 13 months probably of the pandemic, because they were addressing it in 2019 when he wanted to close down the borders and everybody called him xenophobic. That was at the ass end of 2019 when China was having all of their problems.
Right.
So, and
even so,
yeah,
record lows.
Before the border was closed due to the pandemic and Title 42, he was still doing a spectacular job on doing Remain in Mexico and all kinds of other initiatives that they had on immigration for people that were entering the country illegally, right?
Right.
Which the Biden and Harris administration, day one, stripped away everything but the Title 42 because COVID was still rampant. And then they stripped that away, and they were ready for another surge because of that going away. So I don't know. Then
Biden just made it just the worst it could possibly be. The worst numbers we've ever seen since we started recording.
Well, they kept inviting everybody over. In all the interviews they did, they were like, come on over. And then when it got bad a couple of years later, Kamala Harris is like, don't come. And then you got all of these memes about Kamala Harris and Trump going, it's pretty
right.
Good.
It is. But it was her job. So if the right calls her
what the borders are? It wasn't her.
Never the borders are. She was never the borders are.
She was in charge of the border.
She was never in charge of the border. She was literally asked to go into Latin America and figure out why everybody is flocking to the United States. It's not the same thing.
Remember Biden or one of Biden's
I looked it up.
suits
looked it up.
Coming
and
out
no,
and being like, hey, it's her job now.
Anyway, it doesn't even matter. We'd already talked about this once.
I know.
The fact is that she was in Latin. I don't know if she ever went. She might have went once.
I think she went.
And she did absolutely nothing about it. She literally did nothing. It got way, way worse. And it was one of her primary responsibilities, to the chagrin of everybody in the left who thinks you did a great job. It was the worst. She completely failed. So don't even talk to me about Kamala Harris and her border policy. I will laugh you right out of the tavern.
And this is like coming from Jesse, who was absolutely on board with everything they've been doing prior to 5-6 weeks ago.
Whoa.
Like, hell yeah. Come on in.
Whoa.
Have a tent in my backyard.
I was definitely not, but I would have voted for the people that were enabling it. Okay. Yeah. So, yes. Okay. Protecting the freedom of speech. I think we can, this is, again, the way you have to look at this one is Kamala.
The Constitution for a reason.
Yes. Kamala literally, the people that are voting for Kamala are the people who own social media, right? Like, these guys are putting crazy amounts of money into her war chest. They own the social media companies outside of, now they lost Twitter. But Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. Okay. Google, and all the stuff that operates on the Google Cloud. All of these platforms are not interested in free speech. They're interested in a narrative that they're promoting. COVID is a really good example of it. Like, our last video on YouTube got shadow banned because we talked about COVID. Where we literally have an audience.
They got a label.
No, good luck searching and finding our podcast.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. As a new person. No, I don't care. Again, but for the 20 people that are trying to find the podcast, the latest episode, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be tough. And we're literally just two assholes sitting together talking, across the internet. But anyway, they have no interest in free speech. They have 100% interest in what they think is right. Yeah. They want their morals to be your morals, their ethics to be your ethics. Free speech be damned.
Take your brain, put it somewhere else. You don't need it anymore.
Exactly.
Just go and make tax dollars.
And I'm not saying.
All they need you for.
I'll let Zach jump in here in a second, but I'm not saying that Kamala Harris is out there after your voice. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the people that are supporting her, 100%, they want to collect all your information. They want to know everything there is to know about you, and they don't want you to post certain things. They don't want you to have certain ideas, and they're going to do everything they can to ensure you don't even have those ideas in the first place. Right? It's a big problem. Censorship is way out of control, even at this point. Right? In this stage of our internet freedom because of fucking social media. Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, you look at Trump. That dude could not want a more public platform. He could not want free speech more badly.
Yeah. I mean, he's all over it now. I mean, all over it. I don't know, like, if the Democrats had never started throwing just everything in the kitchen sink at Donald Trump, right? Between the Steele dossiers and, the impeachment,
the Mueller report,
well, that was all spawned. It was like dominoes, right? They set it up. Yep. Hillary Clinton paid for the Steele dossier. It spawned the Mueller report. They created an impeachment for him via that report.
Even though Robert Mueller was like, "There's nothing impeachable here," as much as he wanted there to be.
Yeah,
the man is a man of.
He tried. He tried his hardest for a year.
He couldn't find anything. I was surprised.
There wasn't anything there.
My left leaning brain broke when Mueller couldn't recommend it in any sort of indictment. I was like, are you fucking kidding me, Robert?
We argued about this for 2 years.
We did.
2 years. We argued about this.
I thought he was 100% somehow bought off. And I was like, there's some integrity issues with Robert Mueller. But no, the guy was rock solid. So the fact that me and the rest of the people that sat on that committee, right, we were all in agreement that Robert was a complete asshat, not to recommend anything. But he did it. He did a very thorough job. I read the report. I still argued. Zach and I still argued about it. But yeah.
I mean, and it's still, the old arguments are still there. It's kind of like, but the hard part for me to process, right? And this is going to get a little bit off of topic, but you see all of these people throwing these wild sucker punches, right, at Trump. All of this election interference crap that's coming down the pipeline directed at Trump. And then they're like, well, the moment's over. You shouldn't react to that. 4 years have gone by. Don't think about it anymore. We're already moved on. Like, politics happens so fast, and the people in power have recognized that it moves fast and that it's a news cycle for 24 hours, maybe a month. And then nobody has the attention span to keep up with it and to follow through with lawsuits or prosecution. So they almost have carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want at this point, because nobody's held them accountable for the things that they've done in the last 20 years. They've just gotten more and more bold because there hasn't been anybody there to hold them accountable. And it makes me really, really mad to recognize what is basically election interference at this point. When it all boils down to what it should be classified as, it is 100% election interference. There's a laundry list. I've started putting it together, and I'll bring it up when we do the election interference podcast. Tonight's about RFK, and I enjoy that we're focusing on RFK. Kind of last minute, spur of the moment. Jesse's like, "You want to do a podcast about this?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to do a podcast after watching that video." Right. But where I'm trying to get with all of this is, like, when you put too many barriers up for people to get information and to make a decision on their own with information that they've found that hasn't been spoon-fed to them, you are creating election interference. You are creating a system where we don't get to pick our elected officials anymore. It's whoever you wanted us to pick because you're leading us to it. And
right,
I find it incredibly distasteful for where I grew up in America to be in this place in America where we don't have free choice anymore. And what RFK Jr. got up on the stage and said, point blank, that we have Kamala Harris in line to become the next president of the United States without anyone casting a ballot or doing any interviews or doing anything. He said he does 10 interviews like a day, and Trump does something similar constantly for the last 16 months, I believe is what our RFK said. That's a lot of interviews, and he's only done 2 with mainstream media.
They've only allowed him to do 2. They've only invited
That's
him
what
on
I'm saying.
to do 2.
He's tried. He's tried. So for that not to be considered election interference blows my mind. And it's not specifically pointed at Trump. It's specifically pointed at anybody that they can't control. And they can control Kamala Harris. She's vapid. That's why they don't let her do interviews. She can't speak.
I think people really need to understand that. They need to appreciate that it's been how long now?
35 days.
It's been 35 days without a single debate, which I can agree.
Not even just a debate. I'm talking a live interview without a script.
Yes, that has not happened. That doesn't make any sense. That is so weird.
President in all but name right now.
Yeah.
Because Biden is too mentally incompetent to run for president a second time. That's how she became top of the ticket. So if you have somebody who's mentally incompetent because you can't try him on classified documents the same way that Trump has just been tried for classified documents, where he 100% was guiltier than Trump because he was a vice president. Trump was a president. You can do whatever you want with classified documents as a president. It is law, right? It is governmental law. Freaking Joe Biden was vice president. He didn't have any right to have classified documents in his garage. Okay. That is way more of an egregious violation of classified document law. than Donald Trump did. And the prosecutor, her special counsel, her, or whatever his title is, came out and said very specifically, Joe Biden isn't mentally fit to be on trial. So therefore, we were not going to bring charges against him. That is huge, right? He should have been 25th Amendment right there. And Kamala Harris should have been in charge.
That is an interesting point. Yeah, because I mean, that was glazed over so quickly.
That's because it happens so fast, right? Nobody talks about it. Nobody does anything about it. And it took...
On to the next news.
Yeah. And it took him being up in front of everybody doing a debate with Donald Trump and failing miserably.
How many months later was that, though?
Oh, yeah, it's
a while.
Almost a year. That Robert Hur's interview with Biden was like at least 8 months ago.
Yeah.
But
yes.
It just goes to the point that we're seeing unprecedented amounts of election interference. We're seeing unprecedented amounts of censorship on our First Amendment rights. We're seeing unprecedented amounts of censorship of what we can access and know about who's leading our country through Google and Facebook and Meta, whatever. It's crazy where we find ourselves right now in this moment with an incompetent leader on whichever one you pick. You know, both of them are incompetent. And they set us up for another ticket of two incompetent people. And they just want you to swallow it. Open wide and swallow it.
So it's the if you compare how Trump got to where he is now as the nominee from the RNC to where Kamala is now. Okay. Trump, right, was so fucking popular within the GOP and their constituents and the people that actually cast the vote, that he didn't even show up to the debates. It's like, I don't even need to play these games. And at first I was like, okay, that's dangerous, Trump. You should probably show your face. But no, he didn't even need to. Everybody debated. Everybody tried to swim those waters with him. Didn't even matter. It was just an overwhelming amount of support toward Trump. Kamala Harris didn't do any of that. The DNC just knighted her out of it was convenient. They didn't want to have a democratic process. And so this is actually one of the other things that just is pushing me so far away from any of these liberal institutions.
And if you wanted a woman to run, there were plenty of other women that could have gotten up there on the stage with Kamala Harris.
Tulsi would have crushed her. I already did. Tulsi Gabbard already crushed.
Tulsi absolutely crushed her. Yeah. I would absolutely think about voting for Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah.
But I have a feeling that she's firmly in the Trump camp now because I believe she's training Trump for the first debate against Kamala Harris.
She was basically kicked out of the Democratic Party. Straight up. Because I'm not sure if you know her whole story, but, as a brand new, she's a junior representative, right, for Hawaii. And she was immediately brought in as the vice president of the DNC. And her first job as a woman sitting in that seat was to ensure that Hillary Clinton made it through. This is in 2015, that era, 2015, 2016. And she had no choice. It was like, the DNC had already determined that Hillary Clinton was going to be the person. So she had to get rid of Bernie. She had to get rid of everybody else. And she left. She's like, I can't do this. I'm out. And she literally left. And then spent her next, 4 years or however many long, 8 years, I think total, in the House, literally rallying against just corruption and refusing to fall in line with what the elite left were telling her to do. She wouldn't do it, and so they kicked her out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but anyway, to my final point, though.
Yeah, Robert Hur's council, February 2024 is when he released it.
Okay. So, yeah.
About a year ago.
Okay, so that's what my point is. This again, Jesse, left leaning, voted. I've pretty much every time I've had an opportunity to vote, I voted for Obama. I voted for all the people on the left since 2000 when I turned 18, 2002, 2003. Okay, so from there on out, it's just been blue. Now here I didn't get a choice, and before my values come into play here, I value, I should say, the most rudimental or fundamental value is that it's just of a free democratic process. That was not given to me. I did not get a choice on who in the Democratic Party I'd like to see lead this thing.
Yeah.
Not at all. It was straight up just Kamala. And I have nothing against Kamala personally. I really don't. But the fact is I didn't get a choice just pissed me the fuck off. And so I was done. I was like, okay, I can't vote for this. There's just no way I can.
Yeah.
This camera's killing me, by the way. Anyway.
Peekaboo.
Right. I'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is that. So as my camera kind of corrects itself here, moving on to the next part of this, and so we can get we could literally talk about this all night, Zach. And
that's what I'm saying is like when we first started talking about doing specifically a podcast about RFK speech, I was like, dude, we could do 3 episodes on this. We could literally sit down and break it into 3 parts, and we could have 3 episodes just on RFK speech.
Let's get through this list at least, and then let's just see how tired we are or how much longer we want to get going, because it is Saturday tomorrow. Okay, so the next up on this list was corporate capture of our regulatory agencies.
And we've been flirting around with that topic for many episodes. We've talked about that very briefly and a couple times in depth when we've gone on our tangents. But it is crazy to think about how lockstep these agencies are with big pharma and big ag. The FDA gives them whatever they want. And this is something that has been very much on his radar, trying to fix our food supply and all of the crap that we eat in this country. So I don't know. It's mind-blowing to me to think that the government that we've held in so much trust just allows this to go on. So
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who gets more in government subsidies, and by what degree? The tobacco industry or the industries that produce fruits, vegetables, and other healthy things?
Definitely the tobacco industry.
By what degree?
Because the tobacco industry bought all of the food industries that we're currently struggling with quite a lot. 5.
By a factor of 5. Tobacco gets, for every dollar that goes into healthy fruits and vegetables in this country, from a subsidy perspective, farms and whatnot, right? Markets, $5 go to the tobacco industry. And what's really, really interesting is I actually looked into this. Okay. So Philip Morris, massive cigarette manufacturer, right? In 1985, bought out General Foods. In 1988, they bought Kraft Foods, right? RJ Reynolds, another massive cigarette, the conglomerate, bought Nabisco in 1985. And the list goes on. So for those of you who were not aware, this has just been going on and on and on. Actually, it's earlier than that too. In 1969, Philip Morris bought also Miller Brewing Company, just as a point of trying to make it more diverse. But anyway, we could go on and on and on. And that has that could only have a crazy impact. I mean, if that is where our subsidy dollars are going, just at a fundamental level, then we're losing the battle right at the start, because money has to go. So basically, at the start of every year, they look at the budget and they disperse it. Say, okay, this is where all the money is going to go. And if the people that are making those decisions are putting 5 times the amount of money into tobacco than they are our fruits and vegetables, then we're already screwed. We're already losing the game, and the year just started. The point is, again, the difference between Trump, who wants to have RFK in his cabinet, or Kamala, is I have real policy here. I'm looking at real change that Trump and RFK are going to make when addressing these regulatory agencies. And we just talked about one. That's just one agency. We're talking about the FDA, right?
And this is the real change that everybody voted for Obama for. This is real, absolute, concrete change that these guys are talking about.
Honestly, I was thinking about this. Yes, I'm glad. Okay, I hope Trump gets reelected. I personally don't think he makes it to November 2nd, but he needed a timeout. Trump needed a timeout. He needed 4 years to get his shit together because he literally played.
It made him stronger.
4 fucking years.
It made him stronger.
He made
like
allies.
That's the crazy thing. Like the Democrats, when they rigged the election, fucked up hard.
Yeah.
They came into a clusterfuck, right? They're fumbling the ball. They put Joe Biden in there, and they've struggled hard. I mean, if they wanted corruption and world domination, they literally fingered themselves in the butthole with this move. Like, not killing him 4 years ago, that's what they should have done when everybody kind of still had a bad taste in their mouth from his first 4 years.
January 6th,
they've let him just flourish into this beautiful human being over the last 4 years. And he's just been educating himself on just everything, and his policies have become amazing and robust. And the things that we actually care about is what he's pushing forward.
Right.
So they fucked up hard on that one.
And that's why J13 happened, because they were losing fight. They're losing bad. And now if Elon Musk joins as well, like
he's already on board, man. He's already on board.
I don't think it was an official declaration of Elon joining yet.
As soon as he gets that go for Dodge.
I know, but here's the thing. I need to see it to believe it. But the thing is this: if Elon joins, he is going to. There's no way the left can win at this point. Listen, and it's not that the left. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, voting for Trump at this point is like voting for 4 or 5 presidents at the same time, getting in there and just really digging deep into our everything in our government,
right,
and rooting it out. You couldn't imagine a better lineup than what is going to happen if Trump gets into office.
Yeah.
And he has Elon Musk and Robert Kennedy and himself and JD Vance. Tulsi Gabbard.
He was floating Tulsi to get in there.
He's polling so many really talented Americans.
Yeah.
From all walks of life. Okay. He really is. I mean, JD Vance is a young man, but he's a millennial, just like us.
I get it. I'm just not the biggest. But we should have a JD Vance episode, because
we can.
Oh my God,
we can.
Guy.
I'll watch his
fucking beard.
I'll watch his movie.
He just needs to shave that thing off his face. He literally looks like.
I love it. I love his beard.
No, you do not. It is horrible.
He looks better with the beard than he does without it. I'll tell you that right now.
That really just says more about his face. Okay, all right. But just rounding out this last piece here. Again, so I see real policy, and I see real dedication to fixing these problems. And this is not just the FDA. The NIH, the HSS, and the USDA are also on this list. The CIA, the NSA, the DIA, all of these guys are also here. The FBI, totally fucked, right? If
at least the upper echelons are.
Now, these agencies are really fucked, are really, really screwed. NIH, I think at least from the health perspective, HHS and NIH, they're I think they should scrape clean, because you got to get rid of people like Fauci. And I say that in a single sentence for anybody who is just now joining us, and this is the first podcast that you're listening to us for. I don't say this without massive amounts of ammo. Right, Fauci did so much fucking damage, and I had no idea until I started digging into the facts. Because, if you're my fellow Democrat, I thought I was doing the right thing by following his COVID-19 protocol, until I started reading his own fucking literature, saying hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin do wonders against COVID, all just by themselves, let alone just a common cold regimen or a flu regimen with zinc and vitamin D and all these other things. Okay, just those would crush COVID. Your natural immune systems and sun, probably more than fine. All right, it's people with comorbidities that are old. That was the problem with COVID-19.
Yeah.
And what Fauci just made it so much worse by inventing a whole bunch of things. So when I say that one sentence where Fauci is just just like a demon running in the system, I don't say it without massive amounts of context and investigation.
Yeah.
And so anyway, some of these agencies just need the top removed, so that the people that are actually formulating the real opinions based off of these primary articles that they spend years researching, let them keep doing their job. Let them inform the NIH's really public opinion, right, and direction. Not people like Fauci.
Yeah, I think getting rid of, even the top 20% of the leadership of most of these organizations is going to do wonders for them and the country.
Yeah.
Especially if Trump, I don't know if he's backed off on it or not, but throwing all of the departments into different states and different regions and rural areas, so it's not all condensed into DC, so it's easy to just spawn.
Maybe. But there's so much work to be done, and this is why this is like almost an impossible task. Like even this alone, I mean, it'd be hard because like to fix these things, like I said, you have to find all the people that are contributing to the malfeasance of those agencies, and then removing them all. But you have to get rid of lobbying. You have to get rid of all conflicts of interest. You have to deal with the money problem. We were talking about at the very start of the podcast.
Yeah,
that is so hard to do.
Throw the IRS into get rid of income tax, get rid of taxes on tips.
Never gonna happen.
Hey.
That might happen.
Stay with me.
That will happen.
Stay with me for a second.
All right.
You get rid of income tax. Trump's already floated the idea. He wants to get rid of income tax. Take the IRS, start auditing public servants, right? Every single one of them. If you're a county mayor, all throughout the country, audit the shit out of everybody who's holding any kind of government office anywhere. I have seen report after report after report about all of these tiny ass little government mayors and stuff spending all of the town's money, bankrupting them so that they can fulfill some, I don't know, whatever desire that they've got to be head dick in charge. Right. It's insane because they just fly under the radar. You know, nobody is doing any kind of accountability check on our government entities.
Exactly. No, it's 100% right. And in the next episode, I think we're going to talk more about the health issues that we're kind of alluding to here, that we've been talking about. But appreciating, like, our audience, please just go do your own research here on just the absolute disaster that's unfolding in America right now. Just look at all of the issues that we're facing, and why it's uniquely American. This is not happening in Europe. There's no obesity problem in China, right? This is just in the U.S. we're facing these random things. Like I said, look at like autism rates. That's just an American problem. There's no autism outside of the United States, at least in massive levels like we're seeing here.
Look at the appreciate Amish in our country. They don't eat the same food that we eat. You know, they've been jailing Amish people for selling raw milk. You know, Amos Miller. I don't know if you've looked into him at all.
Yeah.
It's insane to me that the guy got thrown in jail for selling milk.
Think about that.
Voluntarily buying it.
Think just use your own brain there for a second, listener. Like a person was selling unpasteurized milk. He was thrown in jail because it wasn't pasteurized. Okay,
and he refused to stop selling.
The world lives off of unpasteurized milk, from teat to your cup everywhere across the world, right? Yeah. Obviously, you want to pasteurize it if you can. Like you know, in certain places you need to because of bacterial levels and whatnot. But
long term,
this country did it for a long time. And we were just fine back then. We were dying over milk. Anyway, this guy goes to jail. Okay. The next one on our list here, and this is where shit gets really hairy, is getting the U.S. intelligence agencies out of the business of propagandizing and surveilling Americans and interfering with elections. It's also the last item on our list. Do you want to start with this one? Because, like, I think it's the death.
I truly, firmly believe that the first mistake that Trump did in his presidency, because Hillary Clinton and all those guys were kind of like softballing him with the Steele reports and stuff like that at the very beginning. He started using private intelligence agencies for his intelligence gathering instead of using the CIA. And I think truly that was the very first thing that Donald Trump did that started this whole crazy bullshit that we're on right now. So I don't know. That's just something I read. I'll have to find the article so I can give it to you so you can read about it. But I think that's going to be an insane, impossible task because their whole job is to blend into society and do regime change. I mean, that's what we've done with them. We've trained these people how to go into countries, how to network with their intelligence agencies in their countries and affect regime change. and we have them all over the world. And they're proposing that they go in and take their funding away, which we don't really give them any funding on the books. So all of their funding is illicit anyways. So that's not going to be for them.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you really get to these people when you don't know who they are? You don't know where they're getting their money. You don't know where they're at. I mean, they call them spooks for a reason, right? So that is the tippy top of Mount Everest on the wish list. You know?
Yeah. So. I honestly, like, I mean, you're kind of alluding to the whole thing. If it was me and I was like, hey, if somehow I managed to survive this, I'm now president, and somehow I'm not going to get murked later on in life. I'm probably getting rid of the entire CIA, and I'm going to build a new one, because you have to get rid of the whole damn thing. You have to. And the NSA, and likely the FBI. The FBI is probably going to be okay. But
at least
those two.
Bottom like 60% probably.
Yeah. And then, of course, anybody who's, if your lifeblood is the FISA court, you're gone. As is the FISA court, for that matter.
The FISA court absolutely needs to be gone.
Yeah.
I am so shocked that they continue to allow them to exist after, the Steele dossier crap, because it was on the ballot. They were like, are we going to let this continue? Yeah, I guess we will.
Yeah. Because we need to be, again, if we got rid of these, here's the problem though. We need this type of intelligence. The United States has enemies across the world. We do it to ourselves. We have enemies because we're terrible imperialists.
Yeah.
But and again, we can debate on this later. I'm not anti-American, ladies and gentlemen. I love this country, but we do a lot of bad things.
We're basically the British Empire right before their fall at this point.
Right. And so anyway, you're literally like, to get rid of some of these agencies, you have to completely rewrite it. You have like the core mission of the CIA, the core mission of the NSA, right? The IA, all these places. We need them, but we need people that are charged, that we can trust to do that work, that are not surveilling Americans, not targeting, dignitaries, for God's sakes, that are not interested in regime change, that are not selling, it's not selling crack on the streets of New York to fund an operation in Latin America.
Completely destroying cultures within America.
It's insane.
Drugs to fund their illicit operations throughout.
They gotta go. They're not Like I don't, dude. They're just like
it would be too hard for us to create a freaking slush fund for the CIA that doesn't involve, selling drugs and stealing children. Did you read that article that came out about the FBI covering up a CIA satanic cult that was stealing children?
No.
I'm going to send it to you. It's insane. The only reason that it's even come to light now is because the statute of limitations on burying the information from the 60s or 70s is like up. And so they have to release this investigation that they did.
I mean, they don't have to.
I'm surprised they did too. Maybe, I don't know what politics are at play there, but basically the CIA had some kind of satanic ritual that they were using to gather informants,
right?
And stealing children from around the country and creating rape orgy, organ harvesting in Virginia.
You're gonna have to send me this article.
I'm gonna send you.
We're gonna have to talk about it. Well, I don't know what we're talking about in the next podcast. Well, I do. We're gonna be talking about some of these health institutions and the health crisis. But then suddenly we're gonna be talking about this because there's just no way you can say this. And then I there's just no way I believe you.
I was reading it today and I was just like, why have I not sent this to Jesse?
That's insane.
And just like blowing up our text messages with this bullshit. Like it's out of control. It was out of control. And I was like, holy crap.
That's amazing. Okay. Any case, I honestly think like these people if they're responsible for Trump's J13, then there's just no way there's just no way. Now RFK is gone too. Now there's two people that are going to be suddenly MIA'd. Don't get into a plane, please God. RFK.
They can't ever fly on the same plane together. They
don't fly on any planes.
After Arizona tonight, they can't be in the same state.
No. They need to literally, I don't know what they need to do. Go find a safe house and just exist. Bunker, and then bring all of your interviews there. If CNN wants to do an interview with you, make sure they come in naked. Right? like
the mafia. Come into my sauna.
Yes, exactly. If you're cutting dope for Trump, you need to be naked because I so worry. I worry.
Now,
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna be having this conversation in a month or two, and it's gonna be really, really bad. It's gonna be terrible.
The problem I'm having is I can't disagree with you. The optimist that I am knows for a fact that he's going to be dodging bullets for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. They've tried everything else against this guy. He's supposedly going to jail in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We'll see.
Right.
You know, that's a perfect time to get him Epsteined, you know?
Or how hard is it? I mean, there's so many drugs that induce heart attack, and it looks like just regular cardiac arrest.
Just
that could just be delivered.
Fucking every ounce of Diet Coke that's within deliverable distance to Donald Trump.
Right. I mean, they're crafty people. Just go up and sneeze near him or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, and same thing for RFK is even more vulnerable. Like both, I would not be surprised if one of these two, or if not both of them, end up. Well, not RFK. If Trump goes away, then RFK gets to live. And so if Trump dies of a heart attack tomorrow, as of his old age, Zach, he was a stressed out guy. He had some problems, and then there you have it.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else? Yeah, I know. Luckily, you know it's gonna be so great because I'm gonna edit this in such a way that people will be looking at us like, why are you guys laughing? What's so funny?
Yeah.
Why are you talking about cameras? Anyway, anything else? Anything else here that you got?
No, I'm gonna say it a fourth and a fifth time. Go watch RFK's suspension of his campaign speech tonight. Go watch it. Go watch it. Seriously, it is so good.
Yep, and watch the Tucker Carlson interview of Casey and Callie Means.
You should go watch that. And if you still got something in you, watch the about 45 minutes into Trump's rally tonight, where he brings RFK on. And
send me the link.
Fireworks and all kinds of good stuff.
Tell you what, I will include these references. I'll include the two podcasts that we're talking about, and this thing that Zach's talking about. I'll include in the description below, so you don't have to do anything other than click on the thing right below this text.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's spectacular. I mean, I haven't watched an RFK rally, or whatever. I don't think that he's used to having this many people cheer for him, chanting USA. You can see it on his face. He's just like, holy shit, I joined the right team.
Yeah. No, he's great, dude. It's going to be great. America, we have forgotten how great this country can be because we are mired in crisis left and right. Health, internationally, domestically, we're dealing with all sorts of problems, health, education, what our media is doing to us, the diversiveness, this woke culture. We can't even talk to each other anymore. We're scared of our neighbors. We have the border.
That's the biggest problem.
Right, it's crazy, and it's all the root cause is largely our food, which RFK wants to fix. So, anyway, dude, let's do this again. How about you? How about that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna keep doing this until we get canceled. So,
at some point, it's gonna happen.
I mean, we already got shadow banned for at least one episode.
We did. Yeah. One of us is gonna go on a thing, and then Politics at the Tavern will soon be Politics at the Tavern with Jesse or Politics at the Tavern with Zach, because the other person has been banned off the face of the earth and can no longer show their faces.
Yeah. It's probably gonna be me.
It's definitely not gonna be you. All right. Next time, though, for those of you who are listening, we're gonna be doing this live. So when do you want to try to do another one of these?
Whenever. I'm pretty. Next week it's going to be wild for me because I'm going to be walking into an unknown situation. So I could do one tomorrow or Sunday, or we could do it sometime midweek, probably after I get a couple days of knowing what the hell I'm walking into.
We will agree on a date, and then I'm going to go set a schedule in our YouTube thing, in the channel, so that people will know when our next thing is going to go live, and that will be a live broadcast so that people can watch the stream as we're doing this live. Because I fight camera issues and you die in your room because it's too
Yeah.
hot.
Well, I mean, as long as nobody's in the house, like right now, I can leave the door open. And it's
Sweet.
quiet and beautiful.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, you have a good night.
Good night, Jesse.